Today I want to talk about textures and how to work with them in the Baldur's Gate 3 toolkit. I'm going to go over how to export textures from the toolkit and how to bring them back in so that they can be applied to our models. For pre-toolkit modders, this tutorial will also go over some important differences between the way we've worked with textures in the past and the way things work now. This tutorial is just for the toolkit, but I have a second video to accompany this one, which will go over what the maps mean in case you're new to modding Baldur's Gate 3. Just a quick disclaimer that I'm not an expert, I'm just explaining things as I understand them. Alright, let's get started. So I'm using the bottom half of the barred shirt in order to give an example that we're going to be working with for a good part of this video. And the first thing I wanted to point out was the difference between materials and textures. So if we open up the visual resource, the model here, you can see that you have a material name. So the materials are what we actually apply to the body. The materials contain the textures as well as other information such as the colors and other effects that we aren't going to get into. We're mostly going to just be focused on the texture maps and how to apply those to the materials and how to apply the materials to the visual resource. The materials are represented by this orb. Then the textures have a checkered pattern. So you've got this purple checkered pattern for just regular textures, and those are just single basic texture maps. And then for the virtual textures, you've got a blue orb that is checkered and has the letters VT on them. And virtual textures contain 3 maps: albedo, normal, and physical. And so those are contained in a single file together. So starting off with some armor, I am just going to export some of these files, and then I'm going to pretend that I've edited them, and I'm going to bring them back in. That way I can also, along the way, show modders who have been modding before how to do that. And then for beginners, I can go a little bit more into depth of what these maps mean after I have done the re-importing. So let us take this, and we're going to right-click on this, which is the virtual texture, and we are going to say extract virtual texture data. So that's going to put it in an assets folder that I created, and let's hit extract. It says that it has extracted them correctly. And then for some reason, we don't have a way to directly export single textures. But Leicarna actually figured out a way to extract these textures anyway. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this little purple orbed texture, and we are going to right click on it, and we're going to say create new from selected. And we're going to be doing this again later, but for a completely different reason. So if you go into your games data folder, you click generated, public, and then you click the name of the mod that you just did this with. You can go into this assets folder that it has just created, and along this way, you'll have the texture that it copied for you. So I'm just going to drag that into this assets folder where the other textures were exported. So one thing to note is that the textures that were exported from the virtual texture, when they're exported using the toolkit, they don't show up, at least for me, in my file explorer. You can't see them. But these, which were exported using the Modder's multi-tool back before the toolkit, those do show up. However, I would like to show you, going back to that, I would like to show you an important difference between these. And that is that the normal map here is purple instead of blue. Now, this purple versus blue thing is different in just a regular texture versus a virtual texture. The regular textures will still be blue, and the virtual textures will be purple. And I'm going to explain those to you right now by showing those in GIMP. So this is the old type of normal map, which is just the same way that normal maps work in non-virtual textures. And then this is the normal map that we just exported from the toolkit. And the reason that it is invisible is because if we go to channels here, you can see that the alpha channel is black. Now here in the other version, the red channel is black. So what happens when you are using a virtual texture is that you need to swap the alpha channel and the red channel. And if you have a normal map that isn't from Baldur's Gate 3, then it will already have that purple. The red channel will be in the red channel, exactly how it's supposed to be, and all you will need to do is make sure that the alpha channel is black. However, if you got your normal map from Baldur's Gate, you are going to need to swap the red and blue channels, the red and alpha channels around. I said blue too many times. So this, if you turn off the alpha channel, looks like this. So let us make that happen here. So I'm in GIMP, and I know you can't see it, but I've gone to colors at the top here, and components. You go down to decompose and make sure this is on RGBA. I think it will try to, by default, say RGB. Make sure that it says RGBA and hit OK. And that's going to break our channels up into layers. So now we see the red channel up here. We can drag it down to here, and we can drag the alpha up to where the red channel was. Now it is in the correct order that it was on here. So the GIMP actually doesn't care what they're named. It cares that the order is red, green, blue, alpha. So I'm not going to bother renaming these. I am just going to go back to colors, components, compose. I want to throw in here that making sure the alpha channel is black only seems to apply if it's in DDS format. Otherwise, you just need to make sure that the red channel is correct and that you don't have to worry about the alpha channel. And we're going to turn off the alpha channel, and now we go and look, and they are the same. You will also need to edit your physical map. So here's the old physical map, and here is the new physical map. And so if you look, you will see that the old one is much more saturated and the new one is actually slightly transparent. And that is because instead of having a white alpha channel, we have a gray alpha channel. So all you need to do to convert your old texture to the new one is to decompose, make your alpha 7F, 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 and then recompose, and it'll turn out like this. Now, Padme 4000 was the one who figured this out and is a complete blessing to the Baldur's Gate 3 modding community. And so now I'd like to move on to actually applying textures. Now, I will be explaining the texture maps after this, and if you're new, you can come back to this if you want to wait to do this until you understand what these textures actually are all about. But first I've got these two examples in here, and I'm not going to talk about actually importing models right now. I'm just talking about textures. So I'm going to use two examples. One is the Bard part that I showed earlier, and the other is a head. And so that will show us the difference in having a virtual texture versus standard textures, and it will also show the difference between different types of materials. So first what we're going to do is to actually import these textures. So first I'm going to do this for the armor. So I'm going to import the mask cloth texture, which is just a standard texture. And I'm pulling that from data, assets, and there's the mask cloth. It's going to ask if we want to create a copy because it was trying to pull it from something other than our assets folder. So I'm just going to say yes and put it into our mods assets folder and hit select. It's going to ask if the texture is our sRGB, and I so far do not know of a single texture where the answer to this is yes. If you are using like the 3 textures that you would typically put into a virtual texture, and instead you're doing them as standard textures, then your base color map would be sRGB. But since we're most likely going to be actually using virtual textures, that's not really going to be relevant. So in almost every case that I know of, just say no here. So now we've got our mask cloth imported, and let's import the virtual texture for that. So that is this one, and this one. And it has noted that they all have the same name with an addition at the end. And I think that that addition is what allows it to understand which place to put these. I have also named these 0, 1, and 2 in the past, and it knows where to put them. So I assume putting 0, 1, 2, or albedo normal physical, or possibly even BM, NM, PM, will put these in the right spot. If they're not in the right spot, you can open this up and make sure it's in the right spot. It's also worth noting what file types you can use. This is odd. I thought that it was only TGA and DDS, but it's showing stuff like JPEG on here. So if you want to try that. I'm using DDS. Now we're just going to hit import. Now we've got the mask cloth and the virtual texture. So if we're doing armor, those are the 2 that we need. And what you're going to do is, instead of going up here to create material, what you actually would want to do is go back to, if you're using a resource from in the game, and then editing that and then re-importing it, go back to the one that you were using. So in this case, it was Bard Body Bot. And if you are doing something custom, then you just want to find whatever is the most similar type of material to what you're trying to create. And then you are going to hit create new from selected, right click, create new from selected. Then you're going to name it whatever. And then we go back to our mod here, and we're going to open up the material. So we're going to have the colors here, we're going to have effects and whatnot up here, and then we're going to have the mask cloth here and the virtual texture here. So you actually have to click on these over here, and then you have to click on this arrow. And it looks like you can search manually, but it is much easier to just, whoopsie, to just hit the arrow. So now we're going to go to virtual texture and apply the virtual texture. I didn't change the name, which is unfortunate because now you can't tell whether or not it changed, but we are going to work under the assumption that it did. So hit OK, and now you have your texture. It looks exactly the same because I didn't edit it, but theoretically you would have edited that texture. If you want to use a material that is actually already in the game, you don't have to do this. You just need to search for the material and apply it the way we are about to apply it right now. So I'm going to open this up, and there is only one object in this file. So you click on the material, and then you click the arrow. Now, unfortunately, this is the only way I know how to do this. I don't know of any way that you can just, copy and paste. And that is quite frustrating because if you are using a vanilla texture, that means that you need to open it up. And by texture, I mean material. It means you open this up like this, and then you will go like this, type in your thing here, and then you'll go to the texture that you find here and hit the arrow. So again, you open up the visual resource first, then you click all, type in the vanilla texture name or material name that you're looking for, click on the material, and hit the arrow if you want to use a vanilla material. So now we are going to be doing a head to get the idea of how to do something that has skin textures. And this will not contain virtual textures. So we're going to go to Add Resource and Texture. And the same way it did with the mask cloth, it's going to try to pull from the assets folder that is from our mod that we are making, instead of the assets folder that we have separately. I'm not sure why that is, but let's go in here, and these are the texture files. So I'm only going to be focusing on CLIA, HMVY, and normal maps. So name this whatever you want. So I'm going to name it Tutorial CLIA, and it wants us to create a copy again. Say yes, assets, select, say no, it's not sRGB. Again, say no for all of them. So yes, select, no, yes, select, and no. So now we've got these dwarf textures, and we are going to now find a material to copy. So again, you want to find the most similar material to what you're working with. I'm going to look for the head I used to create my head. So that is under all, dwarf head C. So we need to make sure that we select just the one that says head C, or whatever skin you're using, and hit create new from selected. Now actually, if you select these, they probably have similar stuff, but for safety reasons, choose whatever is the most similar, which is this one. So create new from selected, name it tie deck. Okay. And then we'll go back to the tutorial and So here is my material. I'm going to open it up. And if you look at the material, this time I'm actually going to be changing it, unlike the last one. So you'll actually see this change. Now, if you look here, you can see that there is a different set of there's a different set of things here than there was in the other material, which is why you need to choose the material that is closest to the item that you're trying to create, the textures you're trying to create. And then these are what determine skin color. Now that is just the default skin color, and because your users can actually just change the skin tone, changing these values for this doesn't really matter also all that much. So we're going to scroll down to the very bottom, and we've got a bunch of maps. We want to make sure that we don't mix up the normal map with the wrinkle map normal. So let's apply those. So here's the normal map. Oops. The HMVY there. And the CLIA there. So, okay. And then we're going to apply that material. Where is it? There we go. I am blind. We're going to apply that material to the head and the ears. And then if you're doing a body, I think that there's only the one place that you need to apply it. So now we can go to the head and see that the skin has the new texture that was just applied. Now you'll see that there are a bunch of areas that do not have any materials applied. That I go over in my heads tutorial. So if you want to know how to do all of the other stuff related to heads, then go to my heads tutorial, because I am not going over that now. I'm just going over the textures and how to apply them to materials. So now that all of that is done, hopefully if you're a modder that is trying to import mods into the toolkit, you now know what to do with textures and materials. And if you're new, I'm going to now go over some of the maps so that you can understand them and how they work.